everyone. Welcome back to Beyond the Trailhead. We got an incredible guest for us this week, or with us this week, not for us, but it's for everybody. But we got Chris over at Enlightened Equipment. Chris, thank you so much for being on this week. I really appreciate you taking the time.
No, I appreciate having being on. So I watched a bunch of them, and they're really fascinating. Kind of hear everybody's story.
Awesome. Well, if anybody's been living under a rock for any amount of time, then I've somehow never heard of Enlightened Equipment. Basically, you guys create a bunch of quilts and other products for the trail. And if you're on the AT or PCT or any trail that at all, you've probably seen one of Enlightened Equipment's quilts, and they're awesome. From what I understand, made in America as well. And so, without further ado, before I give a spiel about Enlightened Equipment, I'll let you tell everybody a little bit about Enlightened Equipment and how you guys all started.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of humble beginnings for sure. Tim Marshall's our owner founder. He got going kind of on the DIY, early DIY scene back in,
Yeah.
I think as early as 2009, but was building stuff from kind of really for like youth groups. He was a church group youth leader, taking kids in backcountry, realizing that, lighter, especially on the kids, was better, so even not even for him. And
Mhm.
he's a very creative guy. He kind of started, figuring out what the stuff was made out of, finding places to source it. Back when like DIY gear supply was kind of new, Through
Yeah.
Hiker was new. You're paying kind of still premium for materials, but you could kind of start. It was edging into that world where you could have access to them. Where now, like thanks to companies like Ripstop by the Roll, it's
Mhm.
prolific. Anybody that really has the desire can basically have access to the same materials that we use at Enlightened Equipment.
Yeah.
um, but back, in 2010 era, that was a pretty kind of new idea. A lot of people bouncing ideas off each other. But Tim kind of, yeah, he just started making it mostly for friends, family, youth group things, being an active participant on Backpacking Light.
Mhm.
And slowly that kind of morphed into people wanting to, buy one-off things from him. Uh, he kind of made that leap of faith that all entrepreneurs eventually kind of have to make if they want to go that next level. And he took an overnight job where he was, more or less sleeping. He was getting paid to sleep, but in the daytime, he was watching kids and started cranking out quilts by
Yeah.
himself. Yeah, so
Wow.
kind of a wild beginning for sure.
Yeah.
Um, it kind of quickly, morphed several times in the next couple of years. He hired a couple people. He was working actually on cutting things in his basement, sending off shells to friends, families, people that he knew, that were close to him. They were basically sewing those things up at his house, sending them back to his house. He was stuffing them with down, and a very small scale operation, but it was kind of coming together. It was kind of
Yeah.
bringing in some dollars. Um, but yeah, 2014, he moved into his first actual building here in Winona. I think it was maybe like 4,000 square feet, but just crammed to the gills with, synthetic pinning tables, a couple improvised stuffing machines made out of leaf blowers,
Yeah.
glass top cutting tables that, you're putting masonite templates on using Crayola twist crayons to kind of
Yeah.
mark everything. And that's really when we started to kind of get some traction. 2016, we moved into our current building that we're in now. It's an old call center for a company called Windcraft that is kind of a, I guess, a local kind of thing, but significant sized upgrade in the building. I think we're around 50,000 square feet here,
Wow.
and just started filling it with
Yeah.
people and machines and cutting tables. And, that's about the time that I got involved, 2016, and it was just, yeah, it was fascinating. It was chaos. It was just really exciting to be around. Yeah.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you've been there since 2016, you said,
Yeah.
right? Okay. So how did you, or what was your position when you started?
Yeah, I mean, kind of an interesting backstory, really. It's like a kind of a probably one of the riskiest things I've ever done in my career, to be honest. I had an entire, about a 12-year career in fundraising, not nonprofit leadership. I worked for a local Boy Scout council for 8 years, camp director. That was really close to my heart. I was Eagle Scout growing up.
Yeah.
So that was a tremendous passion for me that led to some opportunities as an executive director for a Big Brothers Big Sisters organization. And then my final landing spot in the nonprofit space was a foundation director at a local college.
Okay.
Um, so that was kind of what I was doing up until the point of coming here. But the coming here part was pretty wild. I think my family thought I was having a midlife crisis or something. But I'd started to kind of lose some steam on the fundraising, the nonprofit side.
Yeah.
The passion wasn't really there anymore, and as a result, I was starting to really get involved in like the ultralight backpacking scene myself. I was getting some of my buddies kind of involved in it. I basically went out one day kind of on a lark. I grabbed a Singer sewing machine at Goodwill for 17 bucks and started making hammocks and tarps, backpacks. I was making synthetic top quilts and under quilts for my hammock, kind of actually emulating a lot of the companies in the space already, like Enlightened Equipment.
Yeah.
um, it was a thing I kind of kept quiet to, I kind of kept it to myself. Most of my
Yeah.
peers, people in my family didn't really know I was doing it because I kind of felt weird about it.
Yeah.
Like sewing, like some of the people that I did tell I was doing it, I got kind of mixed reactions. Like, what? Like it makes makes your
Chris is in
sewing
his
things
basement
like,
sewing things.
yeah, yeah, like, "What are you up to tonight?" "I'm sewing things," it was like it was kinda weird, and similarly to a much smaller scale, I started, like, a small Facebook marketing business called, Driftless Custom Gear, and I was making, similarly in the forums, I'd post things, I would get people that say, "Oh, that's cool, like, what would it cost to make me a tarp or a hammock?" And I
Yeah.
was just doing, like, little one-off things. um yeah, all the while kind of looking at these bigger brands that were starting to like really hone in on the ultralight backpacking space.
Yeah.
As I got more confident, I started to talk to some of my coworkers about it at the college, and they were surprisingly interested. I think just mostly out of curiosity. So I brought some stuff into work one day. It was a top quilt and an under quilt that I had made for somebody,
Yeah.
and the community education coordinator at the college looked at it and she said, "Wow, that's really interesting stuff. That's a lot like what Enlightened Equipment makes." And I was like, "Yes, it is.
Yeah.
How in the world do you know what Enlightened Equipment is?"
Yeah.
And she said, "Well, they're in town. They're here in town." And I was
Oh.
like, "What?"
Yeah.
It's like my brains just like fell out of my head. I was like, Are we talking about the same thing?" And she's like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, they're in the little no name." We called it the Cinderella shop. It was an
Yeah.
old, um, it was an old fabric kind of store, and no signs on the wall, no nothing. You had to get to it from like almost like a side road alley kind
Yeah.
of entrance. You'd never know it was there. And, man, like, that was kind of the end of me, once I knew that that was in town, I kinda long story short, I reached out to Tim. We ended up meeting up a couple times, and he was
Yeah.
in this, like, crazy scaling, trying to figure it all out mode, and, he started to kinda prod me to come work for him. uh, and yeah, long story short, I quit my super stable union kick butt job in a career I'd been doing for 12 years. And I went and
Yeah.
made 13 bucks an hour as an R&D sewer.
No
He
way.
paired me up with her name's Jenny. She's our still our lead production product designer. She had been sewing since she was 4, and she could sew anything. She
Yeah.
like blew me away. She still does to this day what she can do.
Yeah.
But she didn't have as much, backpacking experience. She didn't have like any real industry knowledge. So Tim paired me up with her, and she kind of got my sewing chops really spun up. I got to contribute to a lot of big projects like Enigma, Footfox redesign, Convert
Yeah.
redesign, helped, design and set test samples like Torrid jackets. The mitten with like the Stronghold mitten, now the Torrid mitten was like my first independent
Hmm.
project. Rain wraps, all of that stuff I got to kind of be part of, and yeah, help through it all. And it was just it was awesome.
Yeah.
It was so cool.
That's awesome. So you went from there to sewing to your position now, which is
CEO.
yeah. So how do you go from
Yeah,
what's
I don't know.
I
It's
forget her
like
name from sewing
yeah.
to CEO?
Yeah, I mean, well, I had a couple things going for me. Like, I had been doing leadership for 12 years. I
Yeah,
was in the space. Like, I used the gear. I knew the brands. Like, I knew a lot of stuff that a lot of people in the building currently didn't know.
yeah,
They were really just kind of winging it, And so, working in R&D gave me this tremendous advantage because I got to learn how all the stuffing stuff works.
yeah,
All the fill schedules, all the everything. How are we cutting things? How are templates made? How does all go together? How are new products being launched into the production spaces? I just got to know so much. I got to know a lot of the people. I was kind of in all of the departments simultaneously. And as things really kind of started to like shoot up, we needed leadership at a lot of levels. So they kind of took all of production and they split it into a manager of production and a couple, I think they called them production coordinators at the time.
okay,
So I applied for a production coordinator job, which was over all of cutting, stuffing, and bags and straps. And I got that position. That was kind of my first like salary role here.
Whoop.
And yeah, that kind of just kind of continued to lead to opportunities. It was just I had a pretty well run situation going on. I had a good rapport with Tim and the other
Yeah,
managers, the couple administrators that were here. I think they all saw that, what I could bring to the table is a lot of like organizational leadership,
yeah,
and just really like good natured with people and kind of cultivated the best out of a lot of my team. And so, yeah, that kind of led to an opportunity. Once a production manager left, I applied for that. I kind of now stepped up. I had a couple coordinators below me. And then as kind of layers kept building, there was a need for more of a high level operations person that kind of oversaw, some of the logistics and inventory and
yeah,
some of the facilities. So I applied for that. I got the operations officer, eventually chief operations officer. And then 2 or 3 years ago, I kind of invented the CEO role. Like it wasn't a thing. Tim, our owner
yeah,
founder, was the thing, but
yeah,
he was overwhelmed by it all.
yeah,
Like he's an amazingly talented product designer. He's like one of the most creative problem solvers I've ever met in my life. But just as the thing started to really kind of grow, I think he just found himself doing a lot of jobs that he didn't
yeah,
want to do. It just wasn't what he came there to do. And
yeah,
I basically just said, like, I could do this for you when and if you're ready to trust me to do this for you. And, over time, he kind of said, yeah, I trust you to do it now. I think
yeah,
you'd be a good opportunity for you and me. So we just
yeah.
kind of went with it.
That's cool. I think it speaks volumes for someone who can work their way up through a company, you know? Sorry. Like when you can work your way up, you have that trust of everybody in the company. It's not just all of a sudden someone shows up and now they're CEO and now everybody's like, "Oh, who's this guy think he is or
Yeah,
who's
he
this
doesn't
lady
know
think they are?"
anything. Yeah.
Exactly.
Totally, like, it's great because, like, we have really high retention with our team, so, I mean, I have a
Yeah.
lot of, like, production specialists, production managers that I remember bringing them on and teaching them how to sew stuff
Yeah.
sacks or
Yeah.
straps, and, like, we have that, like, immediate rapport, It's like, yeah, like, I get you, I get what all this is and how it all works, and so, I think that just gave me a tremendous leg up, like,
Yeah.
we did bring in some people along the way, like, as we needed help in roles that we didn't really feel like we had the good fit internally.
Yeah.
And they've all been failed experiments.
Yeah.
It's for the reasons you described. They kind of
Yeah.
come in with like a very preconceived, you know, thought about how manufacturing should work, what it should look like. It should all just kind of dun dun dun. But at the end of the day, like that's not us at all. We're such
Yeah.
a like any of our cottage, friends, family, businesses, we don't fit that like to traditional like stamp out the manufacturing
Yeah.
mold, and it's different. Like our production team is not sorting things into a bag. They're effectively we're training them to do craftsmanship
Yeah.
level stuff,
Yeah.
from basically zero experience most of the time. And it's
Yeah.
just it's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I think most businesses, can learn from that too. Like I know it's great when you can bring someone in who has another perspective on things,
Mhm.
but it can also have that negative impact of just they come in and think they know everything and they don't work with the company and the role, the way that they've been doing things, you know, and especially
Totally.
when you've been growing a company and it's been successful, that's different than a company that, been lagging behind and everything else, and they need to bring someone in from the outside that has a different perspective on things.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, I agree.
so yeah. So I guess tell people a little bit about Enlightened Equipment as a business, kind of, what things you guys offer, but also what kind of sets Enlightened Equipment apart from other brands, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, we've been pretty deliberate to try to stay in our wheelhouse,
Yeah.
which is primarily like insulation and some apparel.
Yeah.
We've dabbled in a lot of things, we've done, very cool like bug net covers for hammocks and tarps and extremely popular rain jacket, which, we're working on some things always with that. That's
Mhm.
more fabric kind of challenges, but really where the origin story is quilts, it's
Yeah.
it's the idea that you can sleep more comfortably and
Yeah.
warmer in many cases, lighter, less volume, with a sleeping quilt versus sleeping bag. And so really kind of started with Revelation, and really everything is kind of a
Yeah.
variant on the quilt side of the Revelation. It's just a
Yeah.
closed foot box, or it's a full zip, or it's a closed foot box with a partial zip. um, Apex versions, synthetic versions
Yeah.
of them. But really, it was a deliberate choice along the way to try to like do that thing really well, try to be as relevant as we can in that particular conversation, as opposed to kind of watering ourselves down. And, there are like amazing backpack
Yeah.
makers out there, like tremendous,
Yeah.
tents. They're all things that like, of course we've played with, we've been interested in. I think we've even like developed some pretty cool prototype things of them. But at the end of the day, I think it's sometimes better to go deeper down the well than it is to
Yeah.
just kind of like drill a bunch of like little 5 foot, holes.
Yeah.
So,
No, that's a great
primarily like
acronym.
lightweight insulation on quilts. We did come out with kind of a Torrid synthetic line of apparel, which is,
Mhm.
a jacket, an anorak version of the jacket, mittens, booties, a hood.
It's
We've had
funny, sorry to cut
hats.
you off, but like that
Yeah,
Torrid jacket, I was just
yeah,
me and my wife were walking through the airport in LaGuardia,
yeah,
and I was like, I saw a guy leaning on a pole
yeah,
with like a Torrid jacket on, and
yeah,
uh and I was like, wait, and like he wasn't hiking or anything. He just had the Torrid
yeah,
jacket on, and my wife and I were like, "Hey, I know that jacket." And I was about
yeah,
to walk over to be like, "Hey man, I love your jacket." And then I was like, "No, it's gonna be." We had to get going, and I was like, "Okay." My wife's
yeah,
like, "Don't do it. You're just,
yeah.
But
You
I was
get
like,
sucked
"No." I
in
was
a
like,
half-hour conversation.
exactly. We would have talked for
No,
forever. So
it's really wild. Like the Torrid jacket, when we developed it, like it really was just the basic idea was, we had actually been working on a down jacket. But ultimately, we already had at that point synthetic booties, and we had a synthetic hood. And we were kind of like, I almost think like along the way, we kind of felt like we were making it down puffy because that's what everybody expected
yeah,
us to make. And we started to really think about it, and we're like, man, we have such a recipe here on other things, and it handles moisture so well. It handles like body oils, and it's durable. You can slash it, nothing's going to
hmm,
spill out. It can get wet, and you can wring it out, dry it in the sun. And it like the size of a jacket, like the benefit of lightweight insulation, especially if you're not going to go like super fill power, if you're going to put
yeah,
like 550 or something in there, is pretty minimal. Like in terms of loft, you're having to deal with baffle lines and like, pinch points where you're at zero loft and lots
yeah,
of things to snag. We like talked ourselves out of a down jacket
yeah,
basically. And we said, well, I guess like nobody's really doing like a synthetic jacket like this. So it's kind of differentiates ourselves.
yeah,
And we did believe it would be like a better, warmer jacket as the more we started to like run bombs and understand what the weight of it could be. And so, yeah, we kind of just started pattern work, started, building them out for product testers. And like amazingly, like, I don't want to name drop, but like cool, like very cool people that I admire in the industry were
yeah,
coming back and like saying, this jacket is legit, dudes.
yeah,
Like this thing is gonna, I think this thing could be really something.
yeah,
Tweak the pocket zippers, tweak this or that, add this or that. And so we just kind of dialed it in a little bit. It started off a little bit slow. There's even like some old articles where it was like why a synthetic jacket, kind of like browbeating us for even doing
Yeah.
it. But now, we've had a couple years in the last couple years where like we're the number one or the number two jacket on the PCT on
Yeah.
trail exit surveys and stuff. And kind of like you said, it's like proliferated into lifestyle. People are using them for travel, airplane jackets, and like, we have a person in our office that has family and friends in Tokyo, and like they're in Japan walking around taking pictures of just people walking the streets of Tokyo with Torrid
Yeah.
jackets, and it's just like, what in the world did we do?
Yeah. No, it's
Yeah,
crazy to just I love it because I can just throw it in and it's super, super durable. And I think it's great
yeah,
what you said is you guys talked yourselves out
mm,
of because so many people have an idea and they go, I'm going for it no matter what.
yeah,
And then even if like there's 50 bad things that are coming out of it, they still have those two good ideas that they're like, because it has two good things versus the 50, I'm still going to go
yeah,
ahead
yeah,
and go forward with it. And I know some companies they have 100, 200 SKUs and they're having a hard time selling things
yeah.
because they have so many fingers everywhere. They can't have a clear
Right,
direction. So I
right,
think that's a
right.
good point for anybody who's listening, that if you're running a company and you have an idea,
Mm,
go with that idea first and make it and refine it and do it
yeah.
well and then add on to that front, moving forward. So
Yeah, kind of the
um
next logical
yeah,
succession, it kind of felt like Enlightened Equipment was kind of so like boom town for a minute that it was like, well, crap, we have to have a tent, we have to have a backpack. And then all of
yeah,
a sudden we're kind of like, well, the Enigma footbox needs work though. Like, shouldn't we do that first? And
yeah,
it's like, yeah, we should. Like that, it doesn't really make sense to make something new when we know, the way we're creating this thing that's, a flagship product for us is
yeah,
not as good as it could be.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
I was on the AT about a week ago or a week and a half ago, like when people were starting their trail.
Yeah, cool.
And I've talked to this one guy because I'm doing these things where like I'm like, hey man, I love your setup. What are your big three? Right. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
me and him ended up talking. He was like, yeah, I'm here at I can't remember the store that's always there, right by Blood Mountain, but where everybody kind of does like a little bit of a gear
Little
check and
shakedown, yeah.
yeah, a little shakedown. So he was like, yeah, the I can't remember the company that he had, but he was like, "Yeah, the way that the baffles are and stuff like that. I'm a side sleeper. Like the down was pushing down into
Shifts.
one side, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm
Mhm.
going to swap out for I can't remember, but we started talking about Enlightened Equipment and other companies, and like because I've used so many, and I was like, well, you can try these brands, depending on what was in the store, because I hadn't
Yeah,
gone
yeah.
into the store yet, but I was like, man, I never even thought about that. And so like you're saying, like refining it and over again. And because, as you grow, you have so much more information coming in because there's only so much
Totally.
testing you can do on your own before you get feedback
Yeah.
from people. Like when the
Totally, yeah.
iPhone came out and it got bent in half and everybody's like, how did they not know that it would bend? And they're
Yeah.
like, well, we just never even thought people would sit on it like that or do that with their
Yeah.
phones.
Yeah, I mean,
So
it's crazy because, like, at surface level, the revelation doesn't really look that much different than one that was in, like, 2015.
yeah.
But, like, behind the scenes, a ton of stuff has changed, based on, like, feedback that's come through. We used to use an old serger thread called Maxi Lock that's, like, on paper, it's awesome. But, like, over time, it can start to kind of get more braided, more fuzzy. It seems like it's more susceptible to, like, body oils and things, and we were getting, like, a
Okay.
lot of thread breaks and things like that. And so even just subtle things, it's like, hey, we're starting to notice this could be an issue. What is the most bomber tech sturdy thread that we can put in this thing,
Yeah.
that will effectively never be the part that will break, like
Yeah.
how we used to fill it with fill gaps kind of up through was a product of necessity. Like we had no way to do it better because of our old improvised like leaf blower stuff system. But like as we, you get somebody that's now hike triple crowned in it. They've washed it multiple times. It's doing things to the product that like you could never replicate in
Yeah.
R&D. And it's like,
Yeah.
well, shit, we're getting some down migration. We're getting some stuff. We got to figure that all out. And, so we eliminate the fill gap. We fill it completely different, than how we used to, so that everything can kind of be unique in its chamber. It
Yeah.
can never really leave. Um, Yeah, like, even like DWR down versus untreated down, like
Yeah,
lots of things like that have kind of evolved over the years, but I think at its core, it's still very similar to what Tim was making, back
yeah,
in, 2010.
yeah. So do you find on a yearly basis you're um not so much innovating, but just kind of tweaking things? Like how on average, like what do you find? Is it like a yearly thing where you find, oh, there's this one thing that you're because I know some people they're like, okay, I'm gonna make sure that this year I focus on tweaking two things on my product. Or is it
Yeah,
just
yeah.
as comments come in, you're just kind of fixing things?
I mean, there are things that are more real time, like if there's anything that's happening that's like, ooh, this is not a thing that should wait for an iteration change, cord lock is maybe breaking or something like that. Like those are
Yeah,
immediate, like we want to address that stuff right away. But like,
yeah,
the Torrid cuffs, for example, are a thing that people have kind of not been a huge fan of over the years. It's just a simple elastic, with a
yeah,
casing that's sewn in. It's got some stretchiness, but depending on like, how big of a person you are, it can be kind of tight on your wrists. So this year, we changed that out to a power stretch cuff that's got a lot more range. It's a lot more comfortable on your wrist. It
yeah,
handles moisture and stuff better. It's like such a small tweak that like you could have two of the same jacket and not even maybe even notice it right away,
yeah,
but it's definitely an improvement.
yeah.
Just where yeah, I would say that it's pretty frequently, we actually have a tracker board through customer service that is like we kind of categorize things as they come in as like things that we should maybe be on the lookout or like potentially warranty types of trends. But also we
Yeah,
get a lot of customers that say like, hey, this thing could be awesome if X, Y, and Z. And we track all of that and we
yeah,
compile all of it. And like if there's enough of a thing, like, hey, we should have one more size hood. Like, I got a big head and like the large doesn't fit. Like, yeah, I would love your product if there's an XL
yeah,
or like size inclusivity, like 3XLs, like, people just wanting the jacket. There's not a
yeah,
lot out for them in that space. And they're like, I
yeah,
love you guys. Like my friends have, but like a 2X is too small. Cool. We like work with Jenny. She grades one up. Now it's available on custom. So I
yeah,
would say like we're really in like this stage of our company where we're trying to like continue to try to give a customer like a very refined product at a price point that feels approachable, like
yeah,
high value for the cost,
yeah,
just that it's really thought out and tried and tested.
yeah. Do you find then, I guess, I think that's a good thing then if most of your stuff is made, on location in America versus shipping it, you can kind of tweak it and say, hey, okay, maybe we don't offer a triple XL, but maybe
Yeah.
someone needs it. We can do a one off and it's not as big of a deal as versus saying, sorry, we can't help you because we
Yeah.
just,
We
I'd
don't
have to
have the
order
ability.
10,000 extra triple XL large jackets,
Right. Exactly. And like we're like we're like actually I think another thing that's unique about us is that we have effectively two tracks for our customers.
Yeah.
There is a custom option that is
Yeah.
all anything custom is made in Winona, and that does give them the most range of sizes and temperatures and colors and all of those kind of extra features that we know are cool and that people would want, but they're hard to kind of make them maybe viable at like a purchase and import kind of model.
Yeah.
And also there's a lead time element to that. There we might be seasonally up to like, after like the holiday sale, we might be at 12 weeks of lead time or something.
Yeah.
Spring you might be in like 6, 8 weeks. And if people are like me, I'm terrible at planning. I like kind of get to the moment of truth and I'm like,
Yeah.
crap, I need something now. We have that track available too, where we have some great manufacturing partners in Vietnam that make all of our Torrid ready to ship items.
Uh-huh.
We have great manufacturing partners in China that make a lot of several of our ready to ship shells for like Revelations and Enigmas. But they come here empty. It
Yeah.
keeps our options open, like down is a very expensive thing. Like
Yeah.
companies that are putting all this down in products, in boxes, it's a lot of commitment. It's a bigger commitment than typically we're able to make. So we can keep it in a bag here, get
Yeah.
the order, pull the shell, fill it, close it, and get it out in a couple days in our most
Yeah.
popular SKUs.
Yeah. That's cool. I I personally love the customization. I mean, I have a bunch. I think there's one. I don't know if you can see it over my shoulder. Probably can't, but there's um, one there. I got some of your jackets and everything else. And I love being
Cool.
able to customize stuff as much as possible
Yeah,
because then you have your own little flavor when you're on the trail. I love
totally.
seeing people that like have a completely different
Full color matched everything.
yeah, it's like trail
Yeah.
flair. And I'm like,
It's
oh, I love the
awesome.
color match people. They do like with all their gear just laid out on the ground. And like I saw this
Yeah.
one and she had gotten like everything in turquoise.
I've seen
It
some
was
of
like,
those. They're amazing. Yeah.
yeah, it's like Tiffany blue. Everything was like Tiffany blue. And I was like,
Yeah.
that's crazy. That's
It
that's
scratches
really,
my
really cool.
OCD brain pretty well, actually, when I see that
Yeah.
stuff.
You're
Yeah.
like, how did you get that in that color, that
Yeah,
specific
socks,
product?
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of hard work, I'm guessing.
Yeah. So I guess my next question would be what's one thing that you thought was going to be really, really easy in your role that ended up being, a lot harder?
Hmm. I mean, I kinda never take easy for granted, to be honest. Like,
Yeah.
there's I think, like, the thing that I thought would be, I guess, more possible than easy is that I would still be able to be as hands-on with work in projects as I was
Yeah.
in previous roles. Like, I really kind of felt like as I kind of moved through various roles that things that I really liked to do, which are very nerdy and kind of most people probably wouldn't like to do them, like programming our production management software
Yeah.
with all the products and operations and times and being like super hands on with that thing. I think along the way, I realized that I was not doing anybody any service by trying to hold on to them and do
Yeah.
them myself while still trying to kind of, I'm the sole administrator here outside of our founder. So like every manager or director reports to me. And
Yeah.
it's so tempting for me to say like, hey, I got that for you, or I can do that. But I've learned over the years that like that is just unfortunately not a part of my job that I get to really do as much. So I've had to really
Yeah.
shift into like empowering my team to like, key in on like what I'm looking for at the end, support them along the way. But like the to dos end up having to really kind of get farmed out in a way that
Yeah.
I didn't anticipate. Like delegation, I think it's a very it's a very interesting and hard skill set for people if they are like very prideful in like how they want that thing delivered at the
Yeah.
end. I'm very like when I turn it in, I want it to be like the crisp stamp of approval on
Yeah.
everything. But you kind of got to let some of that stuff go and know like when you need that stamp of approval, when like it's good enough, if
Yeah.
it's somebody else's stamp of approval. So I think that's been the hardest part of it is like just realizing that I got to step away from some of like the doing and really just lean into like providing support and leadership for the group and being really clear on the communication, like where we're trying to drive to, what are the missions that we need to accomplish this year. But I've really learned to love that part of it too, and it's very cool to kind of have like for anybody I think that is like thinking about what they I guess enjoy and embrace in their job. Autonomy is so underrated. Like being able to help like forge your own destiny and kind of make calls and have input on things. I think it's the difference, I think, between a lot of people really enjoying what they do versus
Yeah.
just doing what they do.
Yeah. That's good. So I guess in what you just said there, what was one moment when you realized kind of, oh wow, this is actually working when it comes to a problem you were trying to solve, or maybe it was giving up a little bit of that responsibility to somebody else.
Yeah, I mean, I think like marketing is an area that I think there's been kind of some tight control in over the years. And it's mostly because it's an expensive one.
Yeah.
There's a lot of dollars that funnel through there. It's also super public facing. So you're kind of always wanting to feel like it's all just right. And it's, how
Yeah.
are we spending it? How is our, and I think really as we had a director that had left, it was overseeing marketing. And it felt like an inflection point where we really needed to think about it differently. They had really had the reins pretty tight. They were making a lot of calls. But we had a team of people that I really felt like were ready to step up and kind of take on like just look at it completely different. You know, how
Yeah.
like is our stuff stale? Like what do we even why are we even doing half the
Yeah.
stuff we're doing? It didn't even make sense to me half the time. But I think like that particular, era a couple years ago where we really took some of our, our primary doers in marketing and kind of elevated them into a role and said, it's yours.
Yeah.
Like if you want to change it all, if you want to throw it all away,
Yeah.
you can. Like let's see what we can do here. Let's just try something totally different. And it was honestly a little scary, but I had a lot of confidence in the people that we were doing that with. And
Hmm.
I had a feeling that they would come up, winners on it. And
Yeah.
and it really did. It kind of changed everything, and I mean, to a lesser extent, other departments as well. But that marketing pivot was kind of like, wow, like these folks like know what they want to do. They
Yeah.
they they like are totally kind of changing the way I think about things. Like, and it's really kind of become the model here where we're
Yeah.
we're really trying to let our department leadership really drive. If they want to try a different software, they want to do a chat bot, they want to do stuff that like maybe I've never thought about. It's kind of like, well, let's do the number
Yeah.
crunching, let's kind of understand it, but then you're gonna actually do it, right? Like you're gonna do it all, you're gonna take it as far as it can go. And they're like, yeah, then it's like, all right, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see what can come out of this.
Yeah.
And I think it's made everybody so much more fulfilled in their
Yeah.
role when they have their own autonomy and can
Yeah.
really say like, this is my thing, and we're
Yeah.
gonna we're gonna show everybody in the building that we can do this.
Yeah. It's just like when you owned it for the company and stuff like that, you own it and you want Chris's stamp of approval. I'm sure like your marketing guys are like, hey, I got this, all that good stuff. I know my wife works with a lot of social media people and they want to dictate our white dad, Asian mom stereotypes videos that we do and the collabs that we do.
Yeah,
And she has to tell them like, hey, that's a great idea. But the reason we grew the way we grew was because we were doing it this way and we can do a
yeah,
collab with you, but we have to do it our way or else we're not going to get the views because you have to trust us that we know what we're
totally.
doing. And that's why we have the thing. That's why we get millions of views on all the videos is because she's got, and I always run my stuff by her now. I'm like, hey, so I know you got the formula down for yours. So how do I do the formula for mine? Because mine's a little
Totally.
different. And
Yeah.
she's like, oh, do it like this and like this. And I'm like, great. And I do it. And then next thing you know, it gets all kinds of views or it gets all kinds of engagement. And I'm like, I
Yeah.
guess have to listen to her more, even though I think I know what I'm doing,
Yeah.
and you have to stay relevant. So it's like the revelation quilt. It's like you have to have a relevant revelation with like marketing and with every aspect
Totally.
of it. So
Yeah, I think like I think really to be like a good leader, you have to just understand you don't know it all.
yeah,
That you can't know it all and you don't
yeah,
actually even want to know it all. Like you have to kind of understand like this is my go-to person on this particular topic, and I got to just trust that they're going to do the right thing for the company and for their team. And it really, I think, does really shape the culture a lot around here now that
yeah,
there's kind of a point person for all of these things, and we kind of know when we need to have like shipping and logistics in the same meeting, or when it makes sense to have customer service and marketing in the same
yeah,
meeting. Because I know for sure if I made all the calls and I decreed like this is what it's going to be like, this is, hey, graphic designer by trade, this is what I want the graphic to look like. It's not
yeah,
going to be as good as if I just said make a really cool graphic.
yeah,
Like my guess is like, in talking with like some of our graphic design folks, it's kind of like graphic design is hard because just like you said, a company comes to them and says like, I want it to look exactly like this. And I want a moon here and I want it this and this. And it's like,
yeah,
well, I'm the creative here. You're
yeah,
paying me to be creative. And for my skill, just let me run a little bit. Let me eat,
yes,
And so like, I think once you get past that hurdle and you can just like let your team kind of do their thing, man, it opens up a lot of stuff.
yeah. No, that's good. I mean, from a marketing side, I know we're talking a lot about marketing, but I think a lot of people miss the boat when it comes to marketing their company and they're wondering why it's not flourishing. And a lot of times it's just it can just comes down to bad marketing. It's like every time we drive by a restaurant that just opens up by our house, I go, okay,
Yeah.
they're going to be closed in 6 months because, like, perfect example, down the street from us, there's a LA Fitness gym, and there's a strip mall that's just set in this really weird spot that no one ever really goes to. And there's a not a Planet Smoothie, but a smoothie. There's a Smoothie King, and I go to the gym every day, and I've not yet seen that Smoothie King partner with the LA Fitness that's in that same parking lot.
Yeah, come on.
And I'm like, it's right there. What? And then there's no one ever there, and it's so hidden. And I'm like, give them. Other than the fact that they're a Smoothie King, if there were anybody else, they would have already been closed long
Totally.
time ago. And we do a lot of photography for a lot of different brands, and I always like to find out what their overall kind of look is. But
Mhm.
then, just like when I shoot a wedding, I'll tell people, hey, send me your favorite 4 or 5 pictures that you've always wanted to have on your wedding day because you've
Sure.
always thought about those pictures. But
It's
then
great.
trust me as an artist that I'm going to
Get you
not only
that.
get what you kind of wanted, but go over and above and just let my artsy fartsy mind just kind of
Totally.
go, you
It
know?
it
And
it's gonna net the best thing every
yeah,
time. They can't
yeah,
even imagine, like, your brain is just limited so much by, like, just what you know,
yeah,
and if you once you realize that, hey, they know better and they can absolutely blow this away compared to what I could ever dream up, man, it's
yeah,
like sky's the limit. It really is.
yeah. So I guess going to people who are running a business on their own,
Yeah.
what would one piece of advice you'd give them for, say, hey, they run it on their own. They're trying to find a social media person or somebody, I'm sure when it comes to marketing their product, they have to find someone. What would be like one of their first hires outside of, accounting or whatever, so you don't have to worry about that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I mean, I do think that marketing has it's so multifaceted now.
Yeah.
You have so many things to worry about, AEO, SEO, running Google ads, meta ads,
Yeah.
graphic design. Like it is extremely hard, I think, to
Yeah.
find a one size fits all kind of person
Yeah.
that can do all of those things. Like we have tried that, and it's mostly failed because you don't get enough of any of those things.
Yeah.
Our team now is we have a marketing manager, and then we have, effectively like a graphic designer that we've, basically invested in to
Yeah.
teach him some of the things that he just fell short on or gave him a long leash, like
Yeah.
I think we've definitely in areas like that where it's like, hey, we just don't know a ton about meta ads and like how to go deeper on that. Like that's where I think if you can bring in, I think somebody that is willing to learn,
Yeah.
like that they're just a go-getter. They have had some marketing experience. Like our marketing manager now, we picked him up after he did an internship at a wildlife refuge in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
And on paper, it's light, it's like there's not a lot of meat there on the resume, but like when you talked with him, it was like and you looked at what
Yeah.
he had done so far just to grow the audience on that, that kind of that social media area. It's like, I don't think this guy is limited, by
Yeah.
like by what he can do. It's just what he knows right now. And so, just getting them in, it's more of a personality and fit hire for me a lot of times.
Yeah.
It's like, can this person really kind of be a go-getter type that's going to get along with the team, that's going to be a collaborator and is willing to learn? Because I think if you have that, man, like you can get them in Google Ads classes. You can get them involved in some community where they can learn from each other.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm not maybe I'm different this way, but I'm not really like a skill hire guy. Like most of our people have come from all walks of life. We got a former brewery owner. We have a musician degree that was, traveled in bands in
Yeah.
our logistics role. It's like we are a motley crew for sure, but
Yeah.
we're all kind of wired the same way. We really want to make it work. We're problem solvers. We're going to go learn. We want to come to the meeting prepared to like kind of impress, like
Yeah.
be like at a table where everybody's kind of like, oh, dude, that's awesome. Good job.
Yeah.
Like if you can get that on your team, I don't even know if like what they're classically trained in matters as much.
Yeah. That's good. That's really good. So I guess moving on from that, then what would be, and we always ask this of people, like, what is some like, oh crap moments since Enlightened equipment has been around that you're like, oh my gosh, like I know I talked to somebody and they had ordered, a pallet full of trekking poles and they were completely messed up and they had to just bite the bullet on it. Like, what's one kind of oh crap moment with Enlightened equipment?
There's been a lot of oh crap moments over the years. Most of them are like contained detonations,
Yeah.
though, that we're able to kind of like figure it out before things
Yeah.
get particularly bad. Um, we've had oh crap moments where we realized we built a bunch of quilts that, failed downproof testing.
Oh my gosh.
Where
Yeah.
people are getting all of a sudden they're getting feathers like flying you because like the fabric manufacturer didn't, calendar it right. And
Yeah.
we basically didn't get that sear on there to keep the down in. So you're like, frantically reaching out to people that, were in that particular roll of fabric and
Yeah.
trying to get it before they have problems, responding to those problems, getting them replacements.
Yeah.
You basically hope those oh crap moments don't go big, they
Yeah.
don't like get it too far.
Yeah.
We've had, like especially during COVID times, we had a lot of part substitutions.
Yeah.
We got in this whole big thing of just the little simple watch clip buckles that we use to put our pad straps on. They were supposed to be the identical part. They were, recommended by our primary supplier. We got in, we started making them. We got to the quality control and they did not click into our old watch clip buckles. They clipped into themselves, but that would have meant they weren't compatible with like old pad strap
Yeah.
systems. And it was like, oh crap. Like we had to basically take a ton of quilts apart,
Yeah.
go source another thing of watch clip buckles, call customers, it's going to be late, find the right watch clip buckles, get those things in there. COVID was an entire oh crap moment from start to finish,
Yeah.
basically. I mean, it started by like effectively the company's revenue just turning off almost
Yeah.
immediately. Then we were closed for 5 weeks, 6 weeks, something like that, maybe longer. I can't even, I think I just blur it out of my brain. I
Yeah.
don't want to think about it
Yeah.
anymore. But like, we're all gone. Orders are like not even a thing, really. It's all kind of turned off. We have no idea what the future is going to bring
Yeah.
for, is it going to come back? Like, when is it going to come back? Like,
Yeah.
how are is our team going to be there when we return?
Yeah.
And, then of course it did turn back on and it turned
Yeah.
on like a freaking,
Yeah.
fire hose and everything went bonkers. And we went from, I think we were like 80 employees up to 100 and almost 20 employees over the course of a
Wow.
year. So we're developing, like we took our old IT room. It was like maybe like a 15 by 15 room. We made a 6 or 7 person classroom in there. So we were like bulk hiring, bulk training how to
Yeah.
sew things in a classroom.
Wow.
Um, there's just been a lot of
Yeah.
adversity, there's
Yeah.
just been a lot of things like but I don't know. I think that's the spice of life, that's what kind of keeps
Yeah.
everybody on their toes here. I think a lot of us here are, we, I don't know if we do great in like day to day desk jobs, we're kind of,
Yeah.
we kind of need the chaos a little bit where
Yeah.
we feast on it sometimes.
Yeah. I think we all grow from like those crazy, like, oh, remember back when this happened or
Totally.
when this happened, and then you learn from it. I think that's why I love having this podcast is for people to listen to other companies that are, from really large companies to just one guy doing
Yeah,
something, 3D printing something in his garage or her garage,
totally.
and learning from that so they don't make those mistakes of, oh my gosh, even like the buckles you're talking about, you're like they snap in, you're like, oh, they work, but they only work with themselves.
Mhm.
You would have no idea unless you had gone through
Yeah,
that. Now you know to look for those kind of
that's
things.
it's a thing we check now. Yeah.
I mean, there's really funny things that you'd never think to check, and you just again, like we had talked earlier, like you'll just never know until people get it in their hands, and you're just like, okay,
Yeah.
well, I gotta tweak this thing.
Yeah, we had another
Um,
funny one I just remembered.
yeah,
It was kinda early days, big commerce. We were trying to basically add a bunch of products and variants and things like that. And it's all kind of rules and variable based, so you have to kind of say, like, when it's this thing, you add this much money or subtract this much money,
Yeah.
add this much weight, subtract this much weight. And all of a sudden we started to see like this crazy run on like short, regular 20-degree enigmas or something like that. Also, there's just a ton of them in the queue, and we're like, what in the hell is
Yeah.
going on? So we like go onto the product page and some rule was wrong and they were like selling on the website for like $60 a quilt or
Oh my
something like
gosh.
that. Like people figured it out. They're just like, hurry, buy now. You can get
Buy
a
now, yeah.
$60. This is like found an
All over
Easter
Reddit,
egg
it's
kind
just
of
like
thing.
the
Yeah,
yeah, the Enlightened Equipment
exactly.
buy now page.
Yeah, we were like,
That's
"Oh, crap."
crazy.
But yeah,
They
it's
had that
always something.
I think they had that. There was something like in Target or something like that with like a Nintendo or something like
Yeah,
something
yeah.
similar, and everybody was like trying to buy it, and then Target came back and said we're not going to honor any of those things and stuff like that. I think I even got in on that. Maybe it was like a
Why
Nintendo
not, right?
Wii or something. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was crazy. All right, so I guess kind of winding down a little bit, can you tell us like a moment when a customer story or review hit you really, really hard, like in a good way or a bad way? I'd say a good
Yeah.
way.
I mean, lots. I mean, that's another part of this business that I think is kind of an intangible that makes it super special for all of us. We go to a lot of shows. Um, we get to hear a lot of stories, just like from kind of more benign kind of day-to-day use, how it worked for them. But I mean, there's been lots of stories of like this jacket, this quilt saved, their life in
Yeah.
situations, like it's kind of funny. Like, like a while ago, you might have remembered there was that dude in Utah stuck in the quicksand
Oh yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
he was in a Torrid jacket.
yeah,
And we you could kind of notice it from the helicopter footage. And
yeah.
so I
There's a
looked him up and
green
it was
jacket,
a
right? Wasn't
green. It
it?
was a
Yeah,
forest and
I remember
charcoal
that.
Torrid jacket. Exactly. So we were like all around the office, like, oh my gosh, that dude was in a Torrid jacket. Yeah, we saw it. And so I found his customer order and I got his email and I reached out to him and I just like connected with him a little bit and just said, hey, glad you're okay. And he had bought several things from us in the past. Like, hope everything's working out. Like,
Yeah,
hopefully Torrid kept you kind of going in that. And he was like, honestly, dude, like, that was the only thing that probably kept me from dying. He
yeah,
was already in a super hypothermic state. And he's like, if I wouldn't have had that thing on me, I probably would have died.
yeah,
And so it's like, it is those moments sometimes where it is like mostly fun and games. I think most of the people that use our products they're not thinking about what if scenarios to
yeah,
that end, and we don't put a lot of weight on that either. Like, but we do know, I mean, the picture behind me is Base Camp Everest with a convert.
yeah.
People take this crap places that like it does have to work. Like
Yes.
it can be great. It can like work, but I liken it when I talk with our quality team in a way that they probably think is hyperbole, but it's true. Like I think about our products in a lot of ways like airbags or car
Perfect.
seats. Like it's most of the time you're never going to need them, like it's going to be just like it's a nicety. It kind of enhances your experience, but there are
Yeah,
cases where that thing can't fail.
yeah,
Like, it has to be spot on, and, we've had lots of cases over the years where people email in or we talk to them at shows and they tell us about time they're in the Sierras or, where things got real shitty and that it would have been a lot different scenario if they didn't have our quilt or have a jacket or something
yeah,
like that. So I think those are always reminders that, like, what we do here, while we kind of think of it as, like, fun, cool, we're in the gear industry, we're making stuff that people like it also has this performance element to it that we can't ever undermine, that it
yeah,
has to just straight up work when it matters the most. So those
yeah,
are always, I think, great reminders.
yeah. I mean, I know I've been out with my wife, and we'll go and where were we? We were on Mount Rainier, and we were shooting, and then we came back out. But it was like the end of the season, and they were about to close down the one road that goes to the one area that you would enter from the um, uh,
Northwest?
northwest side.
Yeah, it's like a
Sorry,
crazy road that, like, goes way up, 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 it's all gravel
yeah,
and
so not
stuff. I've been
Paradise,
on
but
that.
I think it's not Paradise, but Sunrise.
Yeah,
The one
yeah,
that's not open in the winter, yeah, so we were
yep.
there and there was, like,
It's
2
got, like,
more
a
days.
lookout hike and stuff like that up
Yeah,
there. Yeah,
yeah,
I've hiked
exactly,
that.
yeah. So we went to that parking lot to go and camp, and we had hiked up to this one spot to go and take pictures,
Yeah,
and, so it got down really, really cold, and my wife's all worried, and I'm like, "Okay, don't worry about it. The the quilt that we have is a 0-degree quilt. It's gonna go down to a certain temperature. I've got it all planned out." Like, I always tell my wife, "Don't like, trust me, I got you covered." More than enough,
yeah,
actually.
yeah.
And so she
Buffer.
sleeps warm, I sleep cold, and so
You
you have
always
to
know
kind of,
she's
like you
the
said,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, and you gotta rely on what you have, and when it went down to, I think it was, gosh, it was like, I think 7 degrees or so, and I'm like, "Okay, it's better work to what it says it's gonna work, or else I'm gonna be really, really cold." Now, there's a
Yeah,
little bit of backup stuff and everything else, but I slept like a baby, and I'm like, "Alright,
awesome.
cool, it works," versus sometimes, you go on, not hitting on Amazon, but you go on Amazon and buy
Yeah,
some, knockoff cheap product that's not filled properly, or it says it's filled a certain way, or
yeah.
even the,
Their rating system, lower limit, all that kinda stuff is
yeah,
just deceptive
uh,
at times.
yeah,
Mhm.
you've got to really trust the brand that you're doing. I think that's what sometimes people have to understand too is you're paying for the product, but you're also paying knowing that you're trusting this product
Yeah.
as well. So
Yeah, I mean, I think all companies in our cottage space, we're
yeah,
all small enough that we really can't afford to make a bad product.
yeah,
Like it's too small of a community. If you make backpacks that the straps fall off, like you're in trouble. You make a tent that falls apart, you're in trouble. You make it.
yeah,
What early days our quilts were, kind of like the main call out would have been that they weren't warm enough.
yeah,
We were operating in like early days, like a 5% over stuff. We went to 10% over stuff. We're landing on 30% over stuff, which is now basically like the standard that people
yeah,
apply to a lot of these things because the goals were different at the time. The goals were
yeah,
to have the lightest 20-degree thing that you could possibly get on the market. But as your audience gets bigger and it's more mainstream and you have less knowledge maybe that's out there and experience, like you have to add in that buffer. You got to
yeah,
make sure that people can trust it, that maybe aren't always following best practices, best pad choices, and you got to just make sure they're safe.
yeah, yeah. No, that's crucial. Yeah, that's great. All right, so going into this a little bit more, like if your business was a trail, what would it be, and what mile do you think you're on?
Man. Um
We're going deep now.
Yeah, this is really introspective stuff here, Craig.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't know. One of my favorite trails is it's not a long trail necessarily, but it's up in Munising in the Upper Peninsula. It's called Pictured Rock Scenic Lakeshore Trail.
Okay.
And I think it'd be an interesting correlation because it's kind of got three distinct sections of the trail. The Pictured Rocks is this beautiful scenic area right on Lake Superior. And the first about 15 miles, it's almost like you're in a dream. You're high up in these cliffs. It almost doesn't even look like you're on Earth. You have
Yeah.
Lake Superior that's just out there, and it's just so gorgeous and serene that it's dreamlike. Um, it's really special. I've hiked it a few
Yeah.
times. I think the full trail is like 45 miles, so it's nothing crazy, but you can knock it out in a couple days if you really
Yeah.
want to. 3 days is great. The next section is called 12 Mile Beach, which is a lot like what it sounds like. It's a slog. It's 12 miles of basically walking in loose sand,
Yeah.
and it's hard. I feel like that's an era that I think that we have kind of gone through. It's a grind. It feels a little bit on repeat. You're having to kind of fight through it every step to kind of just keep it going.
Yeah.
Um, but the last section is, um, another really cool section of trail that kind of works up into the bluffs. You start to really get great scenic views of of Lake Superior. It's more diverse. You
Yeah.
know, there's lots of dips and turns and steps and, you know, switchbacks, and you got like cool, you know, geographic features on top of cool man-made features. It's just really interesting with a lot of diversity. Um, and I think that's kind of the phase we're in. You know, I don't, not to say the trail's coming to the end or anything like that,
Yeah.
but I think that we're, you know, we are in a state where we can kind of enjoy it a little bit. You know, some of like the tougher parts of like getting it beyond you know, a basement into like what I would, you know, dysfunctional at times, but mostly a functional business model.
Yeah.
You know, we have tools. We're kind of through some of those growing pain parts that like really hurt, but we're definitely past the dreamlike state where everything's
Mm.
kind of sunshine and rainbows. You know,
Yeah.
that's a very cool part of that new business cycle. But I think we're in a spot that's like, you know, it's a little bit more it's a little bit more it's a little more rugged still. It's a little bit more diverse. There's
Yeah.
twists and turns and there's things to figure out, but it feels a little bit more like what you're used to hiking.
Yeah. That's cool. No, I like hearing like the story of where people feel like they're at and everything. And there's all these different stages in business. And I think once you find that flow, you're
Yeah.
kind of like, oh, good, I got the flow. You kind of know how to. It's like it's like
Yeah.
anything. Like I know with my marriage, I'm like I had all these bumps and stuff like that, and then I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, came out of those bumps, learned from it, and now it's like kind of like, oh, now I can see the like we're going to Italy, right? Like I told you in a couple
Hell
weeks we're
yeah.
going to Italy, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be so great. It's just
That's
chilling
so
and stuff
cool.
like that.
Yeah.
So
That's cool.
awesome. Well, great. Well, I learned a ton. I'm sure everybody learned a ton about business and like
Maybe.
the brand as a
I
whole.
hope so.
So no, I have people who like will DM me and be like, "Oh my gosh, I learned so much. Thank you for having so and so
That's
on."
cool.
So it's great to hear that people are listening or watching and everything else. So
Yeah.
all right, so I'm going to go to rapid fire round. These are just a few questions that are pretty quick answers. They're almost
Okay.
one word answers, just to kind of get to know you a little bit more, and then I'll kind of let you give a shout out to Enlightened Equipment where we can find you guys online
Sweet.
and stuff like that. So all right, first question, my favorite question is favorite national park.
Hmm. Um, man, I mean, Mount Rainier was pretty epic. Some really great memories in that area with my family. I think I'm putting that trip, kind of a Seattle, Puget Sound into the Mount Rainier. That was an awesome
Yeah,
trip. I'm gonna go Mount
yeah,
Rainier. It's beautiful.
sweet. That is my favorite by far. I
It's
love
cool.
Rainier. I love that place. I could just go there
I want to do
all the
more.
time.
Yeah. Yep.
I was so bummed I didn't get the Wonderland permit again this year because I wanted to do it again.
Yeah,
So I was like,
that's looks like an epic set of trail, and I've saw
yeah,
some of the trails that lead off of that in Rainier Park, and it's like, ooh,
yes,
that is some stuff.
it is epic. I did score a North Cascades permit this year, so
Cool,
I'll be heading there for like about a week and a half. So, all
awesome.
right. Next question is tent, hammock, or cowboy camping?
Hammock, 100%.
Really? Okay, this
Yeah,
is my first
100%.
hammock
Yeah,
outside of a hammock maker. Yeah,
yeah, yep. You know, hammock maker in, you know, my spare time. I still
yeah,
am running, you know, hammocks that I made, you know, years ago, but love hammock. I love it. It's kind of perfect for the Midwest, you know, Boundary
yeah,
Waters, Sylvania Wilderness, Porcupine Mountains. It's all so awesome for hammock. It's so comfortable, and I sleep the best in a hammock by
yeah.
far.
That's awesome. All right. Next thing is favorite trail snack.
Mm. Peanut butter M&Ms. I always go in the food bag,
Yeah.
guaranteed. Yep.
Okay. And then now, what's your least favorite or worst trail snack you've ever tried?
Um,
This one's always interesting. I like
yeah,
to hear this one.
this is, I think so. I go to a lot of shows. I get a lot of samples,
Yeah.
and this is, I don't even remember the brand, so it's not going to hurt anybody. But
Yeah.
it was like this large pouch of almost like tapioca consistency energy gel,
Uh
and
huh.
I threw them in there. It was like a lemon lime one, and it's like, you know, I'm like, all right. I mean, it's finally time to give this thing a try. I think
Yeah.
it was. I mean, I drank it. I don't even know if I drank it. It was like a mixture of eating it and drinking it.
Yeah.
0 out of 10 stars, would not
Oh
recommend.
no. It's the worst too when the food is not good when you're on
I
trail,
know.
when usually anything on
Yeah.
trail tastes great, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah, totally.
that's crazy. Okay. Next one is one app that you can't live without for work.
Ooh, man, I think at this point in the game, like we use monday.com. It's our project management software. It's integrates with a lot of our systems, has a lot of it automations, and it really is kind of how all of us keep track of each other. But
Yeah.
I would highly recommend it. It's super intuitive. It's integrates with just tons of stuff. So you can populate Excel sheets from it. You can generate all I mean, it's just it's pretty incredible. We probably haven't even scratched the surface of what it can do. It
Yeah.
keeps us all in line.
That's cool. All right. Kind of with the business side of things right now, what's the biggest splurge you've ever made for your business?
Ooh. Um, I think it was probably a decision to renovate about 10,000 square foot of warehouse space. We had a way more warehouse than we needed, but we also needed high ceilings for a commercial stuffing machine.
Yeah.
So kind of that entire renovation process took, brick walled warehouse space and converted it all into like clean, super nice manufacturing space.
Wow.
And during that time, we added, a huge commercial stuffing machine, like a Zune G3 CAD cutter, with long table bed, all this kind of stuff. So that was probably definitely by dollar amount and definitely by like nicety. It added a ton to the business, but um, it felt like quite a splurge at the time.
I can only imagine. I'd
Yeah,
love to see that. That's pretty cool.
yeah. Come
So
by for a tour.
I didn't even think you had to have gravity stuff to do that. But yeah, you need like
Yeah,
a big space because down is not small. It compacts small, but it like
yeah, yeah. I mean,
it poops
like,
up.
yeah, a bag of 20-pound bag of downs as tall as me. So,
Yeah. Okay. Next, two more. If you could collab with any brand, who would it be?
hmm, boy, man, that's putting me on the spot right there. Um, like this is gonna get some hate for sure, but one of the pieces of gear that I have effectively never replaced, I've
Mhm.
tried multiple times, is my Osprey Exos 38. And I don't really know why I can't get beyond their trampoline back style
Yeah.
vented frame, but I've got a like literally like a freaking series of packs in my house, and I always
Yeah.
come back to the brain off Exos 38, and it's awesome. So Osprey would be a
Yeah.
cool one, honestly.
That's cool. No, I think it's great to see like we all have like pieces of gear that we just you can get a new piece, but sometimes you just always kind of gravitate towards a
Yeah.
certain bag or a certain food or a certain quilt or all those different things. That's awesome. All right, and then the last question is, what's one word to use to describe the outdoor industry right now?
Cool. I mean, I got a couple. Maybe I'll throw out a few. I
Go for it.
think growing and edging into saturated in some categories.
Yeah,
I just and it's awesome because a lot of the new and emerging brands are bringing a lot of things to the table. But it's definitely getting crowded. You can definitely see that even from like non-domestic. You're seeing just lots of copycats of designs
yeah,
and really the unfortunate things. A lot of like very cool brands have done a lot of IP work to make some of the coolest stuff, but you're seeing just so many knockoffs and things like that. So I think the space is getting a little bit crowded and a little bit
mhm,
hard to kind of lock in on.
yeah,
But I think it's very exciting too. I think that like technology blended with creativity is going to probably spur a lot of neat things that is hard to knock off. It's hard
yeah,
to kind of catch up with it if you're kind of a step ahead.
yeah,
We got another very cool company that I would, have and would like to collab with again is Ripstop by the Roll. And I
mhm,
probably can't say, but we're talking about something that'd be pretty interesting right now. I'm looking forward to
cool.
kind of continued conversations with them. So, yeah, I think that there's a technology adds this interesting X factor to the outdoor
Yeah,
space that can really just all of a sudden open up entire sections of things that you thought were closed off for years.
yeah. I think, and that saturation can almost help innovation a little bit too, because then
Yeah, it
people go,
pushes it.
okay, it's saturated. Now I've got to now innovate on my product or innovate on
Yeah,
this. So that way I don't just get left behind with all the duplicates and stuff like that. So
totally.
that's cool. Well, awesome. Well, I appreciate it. I mean, I learned the ridiculous amount on running a company, and more. My hats off to you for even doing it,
Hey,
because
yeah, thanks for
I'm the
having me,
probably the
Craig.
worst leader ever, or not leader, but I'm a terrible manager, is what I always like to say, because I just
Well,
I
you
can't
know,
let go of my baby.
you've kind of gravitated to the thing you like, and you've been able to make it work. So, good for you doing
Yeah,
that. I mean, you're having fun, you're getting calling shots and do what you want to
yeah,
do, traveling a lot with your wife. I
yeah.
mean, you're winning, dude. You're
No,
absolutely
totally.
winning. So good job. Absolutely good
Thank
job
you.
on that. Thanks for having me. And thanks to
Awesome.
all the customers that have, been part of the Enlightened Equipment family for all the years. I think at this point, like, we definitely cracked 100,000 revelations at some point in the
Wow.
last year or so. So a lot of things have gone out the door over the years, and it's always, like you said, it's cool to see people using it on trail, and random cross posts with people, in a Torrid jacket and things like that. It just
Yeah,
it makes it pretty special, but we do appreciate our customers, and yeah, I look forward to continuing to serve them.
that's awesome. So if anybody's never heard of Enlightened Equipment or wants to find out more, where can they find you guys online and on your socials?
Could just Google Enlightened Equipment. We should typically be number one, but otherwise, enlightenedequipment.com will get you there.
Awesome. Well, Chris, thank you so much, everybody. Thank you so much for listening,
Yeah,
and
of
we look
course.
forward to the next episode. And have a great one. I'm sure I'll see you on the trail. Maybe
Sounds good,
I'll
Craig.
come up there
Thanks for
to
having me, man.
Minneapolis.
All right, dude, please do. All right,
Thanks,
see ya.
Chris.